You've sat in silence while she argues, twisting your words, draining your peace. You feel small, not listened to, not respected. You know deep down you deserve more. You know your logic, calmness, and values are better than this chaos. But how do you speak one thing so powerful she can't argue, manipulate, or guilt-trip you? If you ever felt unseen, small, unheard, this video is specially for you. Comment, "I demand respect," if you want to rise above this. You're about to learn 5 responses so sharp they'll end any emotional warfare. Number 1. Let's talk when you're calm. You sit there, and you know this routine too well. She's raising her voice, tossing accusations, nitpicking your tone, saying you don't care, flipping your intentions into insults. And you're trying to stay composed, trying not to snap, trying to be reasonable in the face of chaos. But inside you're exhausted, not just from this argument, but from the 1,000 others that ended just like it, where nothing was resolved, where your words were twisted, where logic had no place, where your silence was used against you and your patience made you feel like the weak one. You feel like you're losing your edge. You wonder when you became this muted version of yourself, walking on eggshells in your own space, in your own mind. But you didn't get weak. You just weren't taught how to respond. You were taught to endure, to absorb, to fix, to calm her down, even when she's disrespecting your peace. That ends now, because this one sentence, "Let's talk when you're calm," rebuilds your authority. It doesn't escalate, it doesn't explain, and it doesn't beg. It simply withdraws the fuel. It reclaims your control without reacting. It's not passive, it's not avoidance. It's power through stillness. And that stillness doesn't come from fear, it comes from clarity. You're no longer participating in emotional chaos. You're commanding emotional space. You're saying, "Your storm doesn't move me," and when you say it, you don't raise your voice, you don't look away, you look right at her. You hold your voice steady, you say it once, then silence, because once you drop that line, you don't need to continue. If she's not calm, there's no discussion, period. And the more you do this, the more your presence changes. She realizes the louder she gets, the less she gets from you. She sees your respect isn't cheap. She learns she can't hijack your emotions anymore, and that begins to rewire the dynamic. Because when a man stops reacting, the entire environment shifts. She either rises to meet your energy, or she exposes herself. But you don't even need to say it for her. She feels it in the room, and here's what most men never learn. In every argument, there's the fight, and then there's the field where it happens. Most men focus on the fight, trying to win the words. But real men own the field. And the man who owns the emotional space of a conversation decides how deep it goes, how long it lasts, and when it ends. That's what this phrase gives you. It's the reset button. It's the control switch. It's the reminder that you don't have to battle to be powerful. You just have to choose when the conversation deserves your attention. Imagine this in practice. She's shouting about something small, twisting it into a character assassination. You listen, calm. Then you say, "Let's talk when you're calm." You lean back. You stop responding. You're not cold. You're composed. She throws a few more jabs, trying to bait you. You don't flinch. That silence is louder than any insult. It's not just discipline, it's training. Because what this phrase requires from you isn't just the words, it's the energy behind them. And that energy comes from a man who isn't desperate to prove himself. A man who values his mental space so much that he doesn't rent it out for free. You've been trained to fix everything, to manage her moods, to be the emotional shock absorber for both of you. And that training cost you your peace, your confidence, and your edge. But you get it back when you learn this. Not every voice deserves a response. and not every attack needs defense. Some moments require one line and total emotional withdrawal. That's Stoic power, not reacting out of ego but choosing your ground. And when you start doing this, you'll notice something strange. She becomes quieter, not because she agrees with you, but because she's unsure how to engage with a man who isn't programmable by her emotions. That confusion becomes respect. That respect becomes attraction. And not just in her, everyone around you begins to feel it, because your tone says, "You'll only get me at my best when you approach me with respect." And that boundary becomes your signature. That energy becomes your identity. You don't need 10 comebacks. You need one line and total alignment. But to say it right, you have to become it. You have to stop being the emotional firefighter and become the architect of your own peace. That means learning to pause, to detach, to recognize when you're being dragged into a fight that serves no one. That's what this sentence gives you. It's not avoidance, it's selection. You're not refusing to engage, you're demanding a standard. And that's the ultimate shift, from being reactive to becoming selective. Because when a man becomes selective, he stops chasing validation and starts commanding presence. And women may test it, they may challenge it, but they respect it more than anything. Because deep down, every woman wants to feel the presence of a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, and doesn't entertain disrespect. That man, when he speaks, needs no volume, just one sentence, steady tone, eye contact, and silence. Let's talk when you're calm, and you wait. Because the man who waits, not out of fear, but out of standard, is the man who never loses control. You become that man by choosing your silence, not from weakness, but from absolute clarity that you will never trade your peace for temporary validation again. And when you do, everything pauses. Because that's what truth does. It stops cycles. And that's what you've always had the power to do. You just didn't realize how simple it was. Now imagine carrying that clarity with you everywhere, knowing exactly how to handle disrespect, emotional chaos, and manipulation, not just in one moment, but for the rest of your life. That's exactly what the Stoic relationship blueprint gives you. It's not just a book. It's a weapon, a map, a system built with timeless Stoic principles to help you reclaim your identity, your peace, and your power in any relationship without compromise. And for the first time ever, it's available in audiobook format, so you can absorb this life-changing knowledge while walking, training, or even driving, letting each word rewire how you see yourself and the world around you. You don't just read it, you carry it, you live it. And once you get it, it's yours forever. No subscriptions, no games, just permanent access to the mindset shift you've been searching for. The link is in the comments. Click it now and own the blueprint that makes you unshakable. Number 2, that's not acceptable to me. You've tolerated things for far too long. The comments said in public that made you look small. The jabs passed off as jokes that stung more than you wanted to admit. The eye rolls when you spoke. The interruptions when you tried to explain. You didn't say anything. You kept the peace. You avoided conflict. But it's been eating away at you, hasn't it? Every time you stayed silent, a part of you shrank. Every time you let it slide, she learned you'd bend. You convinced yourself it wasn't a big deal. You said she was emotional. You told yourself not to overreact. But now you're here, angry, drained, and disrespected. And this isn't just about her anymore. It's about every person who's walked past your boundaries because you never drew the line. That ends the moment you look someone in the eyes and calmly say, "That's not acceptable to me." You're not explaining, you're not asking, you're not negotiating, you're declaring. And the reason that line hits so hard is because it comes from a man who's finally had enough. A man who's not interested in being liked more than being respected. A man who understands that peace without boundaries is just submission. You see, people don't push boundaries. They push your boundaries. The ones you haven't enforced. The ones you let blur in the name of avoiding confrontation. But confrontation isn't violence, it's clarity, and clarity is the foundation of respect. The problem is, you've been trained to absorb disrespect if it's wrapped in a soft tone or comes from someone attractive. But disrespect is disrespect, no matter how it's delivered. When she criticizes your vision, mocks your beliefs, belittles your routines, that's not just how she is, that's a test. And when you passively allow it, you fail the test without even knowing one was happening. Women constantly test the strength of the man they're with, not through words of praise, but through pressure. And every time you excuse it, she sees weakness. You don't have to yell, you don't have to argue, you have to speak with certainty. That's not acceptable to me. That's not a request. That's a law. And laws are not up for debate. You don't explain why. You don't list all your reasons. You state it and you hold. And if she pushes back, mocks you, or plays the victim, you hold. Because here's the truth most men won't say out loud. Many women want to know where your line is. They want to feel you have a backbone, that your standards aren't just quotes you read, they're truths you live by. When you say that's not acceptable to me, you're telling the world, this is the level I play at. If you can't meet me here, you can leave. And that energy, it changes everything. People begin to speak to you differently. She thinks twice before crossing that line, and even if she does cross it, you don't argue, you withdraw, you detach, because you don't beg for respect. You command it by removing access to you when it's violated. But this isn't about becoming cold. This is about becoming clear, crystal clear. Because clarity doesn't confuse. It either draws people in or pushes them away. Both are wins. You see, most men stay in blurry relationships, confused, emotional, anxious, because they never clarify what they stand for. And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall into everything. That phrase, that's not acceptable to me, is your line in the sand. It says, I'd rather lose you than lose myself. It says, I will not betray myself for connection. And the second you start living this way, you start walking taller. You stop second-guessing your instincts. You stop tolerating bad behavior wrapped in good looks. You stop rewarding manipulation with your presence. You stop being a punching bag for someone who hasn't dealt with their own emotions. Instead, you become a force, unshakable, unbothered, unavailable to nonsense, and yes, it will cost you. Some people will leave. Some women will call you controlling, difficult, or arrogant. Let them. The truth is, the people who can't handle your standards were only there because you had none. And when they're gone, space opens for those who understand your value. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. And alignment only happens when you speak up the moment something crosses your values. You don't wait. You don't hope they get it. You say it the first time, every time, until you don't have to say it anymore, because your energy speaks for you. But you can't fake this. You can't just say the line and expect miracles. You have to believe it. You have to become a man who lives by that phrase in everything. Your health, your time, your money, your purpose. You have to look in the mirror and say, what have I been accepting that I know deep down is beneath me? And when you identify it, you cut it. Number, ceremony. No apology, just clarity. And from that place, you rebuild. Not just your relationships, your entire life. Because when you raise your standard, everything that isn't aligned falls away, and what remains is what's meant to be. But none of that begins until you stop waiting for people to respect you and start demanding it by the way you carry yourself. You don't do this to hurt anyone. You do it to finally honor the man inside you who's been silent for too long, the man who's sick of pretending things are okay, the man who wants to breathe without walking on eggshells, the man who values his time, his peace, and his mission more than any momentary connection. That man, that version of you, emerges the moment you speak that line and back it with action. So the next time someone steps out of line, don't explain, don't flinch, don't argue, just say, "That's not acceptable to me," and let your silence carry the rest. Number 3. I'm not here to argue. I've already decided. You've been trapped in the loop more times than you can count. She says something unfair. You try to explain. She interrupts. You try to clarify. She twists your words. You repeat yourself. She escalates. And before you know it, you're 40 minutes deep into a debate about something you thought was already decided. You're tired. You feel like you're drowning in words, defending your right to breathe, to choose, to live according to your own decisions. And no matter what you say, it never seems enough. She keeps poking, prodding, analyzing, pushing buttons until you're second-guessing everything. And the truth is, you didn't lose because you were wrong. You lost because you stayed in a conversation that should have ended with a sentence. I'm not here to argue. I've already decided. That's it. That's the difference between men who lead and men who are led in circles. You're not here to debate your values, to negotiate your identity, or to explain the logic of your decision to someone who's already made up their mind to oppose it. You're here to live your truth, not to justify it. And this line, this clean, sharp, unapologetic phrase, it stops the spiral instantly, because it does what nothing else has. It ends the open loop. It says the decision isn't on the table. It's done. And that's where your real power lives, in finality. Because when a man speaks with finality, he becomes immovable. And when you become immovable, people start to adjust themselves around you. This isn't about being stubborn. It's about being sovereign. It's about recognizing that if you don't protect your decisions, they'll be constantly poked, questioned, eroded, not because she's evil, but because that's what people do when they sense uncertainty. And if you've ever sat there explaining for the third time why you don't want to go somewhere, or why you don't want her to speak to you that way, or why you made a certain career move and still felt unheard, it's because you never made it clear that this wasn't a discussion. It was a declaration. That's where this sentence rewrites your identity. Because when you say, "I've already decided," you're saying, "I've done the thinking. I've weighed the options. I've faced the consequences. And I've chosen." That makes you a man who lives with intention, not a man waiting for permission. And yes, she might push harder. She might raise her voice. She might accuse you of being cold, unfeeling, dismissive. Let her. You're not cold. You're clear. And clarity feels like rejection to someone who benefits from your confusion. But here's the twist. Once you say it and hold it, she will respect you more than if you'd caved. Because deep down, every woman is testing whether her emotions can override your convictions. And if they can, she can't trust you. Not really. Because if she can sway you from your path with pressure, then you're not rooted. You're just reacting. But when she sees that you won't argue, that your energy doesn't flinch, that you won't defend what you've already chosen, she either falls in line or she falls away. And both outcomes are wins. Because the wrong woman will leave and the right one will rise. But this sentence doesn't just transform your relationships. It transforms your mind. You start using it with your habits, your goals, your time. You stop letting people talk you out of your gym time. You stop letting people distract you from your mission. You stop allowing other people's discomfort to dictate your decisions. You move from justification to direction, from seeking approval to setting standards. That's the essence of Stoic strength. Not in suppressing your feelings, but in mastering your actions. And you master your actions when you remove decision fatigue. You don't go back and forth. You don't ask for consensus. You act. And once the decision is made, it's made. So next time she tries to loop you into another emotional merry-go-round, pause, breathe, and say it without flinching. I'm not here to argue. I've already decided. Then stop talking. The silence will shake her more than shouting ever could, because silence backed by certainty is the loudest power a man can carry. And over time, this becomes your frame. People feel it before you even speak. They realize he's not here to argue. He's already decided. And that presence, that's what makes you untouchable. Number 4. You're free to feel that way. She says you don't care. She tells you you're selfish. She tells you you've changed. You used to chase. You used to check in. You used to validate every mood and apologize for emotions you didn't cause. And because you thought it was love, you did it. Every time. You played therapist. You became her emotional regulator, her punching bag, her source of stability, even when she spun out over the smallest things. And at first, you felt needed. It made you feel important. You thought, if I love her enough, she'll see me. She'll calm down. But she didn't. She escalated. And soon, her feelings became facts, and your truth became secondary. You found yourself apologizing for how she felt, feelings that had nothing to do with your words or actions. She weaponized sadness, frustration, and silence. You kept bending. You explained yourself over and over. You tried to reason, fix, soften the blow. But every time you did that, something inside you faded. Your fire dimmed, your strength softened, because somewhere in all of that, you forgot that her feelings don't define your reality. And this is where your breakthrough begins. The moment you say, without fear, without guilt, you're free to feel that way. You're not dismissing her. You're not mocking her. You're setting yourself free from emotional chains you never agreed to carry. Because once a man allows someone's emotions to dictate his behavior, he no longer owns his behavior. And when you say this phrase, what you're really doing is detaching from emotional manipulation in its most subtle form. Because guilt is the most efficient leash ever designed. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It makes you doubt yourself in silence. And this sentence cuts the leash clean. Imagine the next time she says, I can't believe you didn't call me back. You must not care. And instead of scrambling to defend yourself, you calmly say, you're free to feel that way. No argument, no defensiveness, no justification. And in that moment, you're not cold, you're composed. Because you're no longer reacting to emotional bait. You've stepped out of the frame. You've stepped into clarity. And clarity is everything. Because most of her frustration isn't about what you did. It's about not being able to control how you respond. And once she realizes that her feelings won't force you to submit, something shifts. She might push harder. She might accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. Let her. You're not here to fix how she feels. You're here to live in truth. And the truth is, people are allowed to feel whatever they feel. But they're not allowed to use those feelings as weapons against you. This phrase reminds her, and reminds you, that two people can experience the same moment differently, and that's okay. But only one of you is trying to rewrite the other's reality. And if you allow it, you lose yourself one compromise at a time. That's why this sentence, though simple, is a boundary dressed as a statement. It says, I see you, but I won't bend for you. And that's rare, because we live in a world where feelings are currency and offense is control. But you're done being bought. You're done being manipulated by tears, tones, and tantrums. Not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself too. And this is where your growth begins, when you stop seeing your worth through someone else's emotional lens. When you stop apologizing for who you are because someone else is uncomfortable. When you start living as if your peace matters just as much as hers. And it does, more even. Because when you lead with peace, you offer clarity. You become the anchor in the chaos, not by absorbing it, but by refusing to entertain it. That's real leadership. That's real love. And that's what this line delivers. It's emotional leadership in its purest form. And yes, it will trigger her, especially if she's used to winning with emotion. But let her be triggered. Let her feel. That's her journey, not yours. You don't adjust your truth to protect someone else from their own emotional consequences. You hold steady. You speak calm. You exit arguments you never started. And the men who learn this, who master this, live lighter. They don't fear confrontation because they don't need to confront. They don't chase peace. They embody it. And you get there by using this sentence like a sword, precise, silent, final. Because when you say, "You're free to feel that way," what you're really saying is, "I no longer agree to carry what doesn't belong to me." And from there, everything changes. You no longer fear how she feels. You no longer try to manage it. You simply allow it and keep moving. And the irony? That's when she begins to calm. Because chaos loses energy when it meets clarity. That's the truth. That's the power. And that's the life you step into when you stop defending yourself and start owning yourself. One phrase at a time. Number 5. This conversation isn't going anywhere useful. You've been in the loop for far too long, not just in this relationship, but in life. The same arguments, the same emotional bait, the same drawn-out talks that feel more like tactical warfare than meaningful dialogue. You try to stay calm, you try to explain, but you notice the pattern. Nothing is actually getting solved. You enter the conversation thinking it's about something small, a misunderstanding, a scheduling issue, a minor disagreement. But within minutes, you're sucked into something else entirely, a whirlwind of blame, projections, past grievances she's never really let go of, wrapped in tone and tension that make you feel like the villain in your own story. And the truth is, you're tired, not physically, but emotionally and mentally drained from conversations that are supposed to bring clarity, but only deliver confusion. You know the dynamic. She'll start soft, then it escalates. You feel cornered. You try to stay logical. But now you're defending things that happened months ago. She's not looking for resolution. She's looking for submission, and you've allowed it before. You've stayed in these loops far past the point of reason because you believed walking away was weakness. You were taught to push through, to fix it, to talk it out no matter how broken the discussion becomes. But the cost, your sanity, your dignity, your clarity. What you didn't realize then is that some conversations aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be left. And the moment you say this line, "This conversation isn't going anywhere useful," you do more than end a fight. You reclaim the right to guard your energy. You reset the room. You draw the line not with emotion, but with indifference to the chaos. And this isn't about avoidance. This is about mastery. You're no longer playing the role of the fixer, the explainer, the emotional sponge. You're stepping into a new role, the man who sets the terms of engagement. Because the truth is, people will talk forever if they know you'll listen. They'll unload their feelings, their projections, their emotional immaturity into your life without filter, because you've never told them they can't. That ends today. You don't sit through emotional dumping. You don't entertain toxic loops dressed as "we need to talk." You don't allow your mental space to be hijacked under the disguise of communication. This sentence puts a bullet in that script. This conversation isn't going anywhere useful. Full stop. And here's the key. You say it and you leave. Not angrily, not with slamming doors, but with calm, detached finality. You don't wait for permission. You don't ask if it's okay. You declare it and you walk. Because a man who can leave a conversation he didn't start but refuses to be consumed by, that man is dangerous in the best way possible. He's immune to chaos. He doesn't get baited, and over time, everyone around him adapts, even her. At first, she may push harder, try to guilt you, say you're avoiding her, accuse you of emotional abandonment. Let her. That's her discomfort speaking, not your responsibility. Because the moment you stop playing the game, you force everyone to face their own behavior. And this is where the transformation begins, not just in her, but in you. You start to realize how much of your life you've spent in conversations that stole your peace. At work, with friends, with family. Loops, guilt, manipulation. You thought you had to sit there. You thought enduring was strength. But the man who truly values his time, he doesn't engage in what doesn't evolve him. He listens once, clarifies once, and if it keeps spiraling, he cuts the rope. Not emotionally, strategically, because he knows the most powerful tool he owns is his attention, and he no longer gives it away cheaply. And this sentence, this seemingly simple phrase, is how he controls the price. This conversation isn't going anywhere useful. It says, I'm done being emotionally held hostage. It says, my clarity isn't up for compromise. It says, I'm not here to get dragged into a mess disguised as resolution. And more than that, it teaches people how to treat you. Because you don't just say this once. You say it every time a conversation devolves into disrespect, repetition, or manipulation, and it becomes a shield. You no longer fear confrontation because you've mastered the art of exiting without engaging. You no longer over-explain because you know real authority doesn't chase understanding. It invites it, but doesn't beg for it. And most importantly, you become a man who's immune to noise. And that changes everything. Your mind becomes quieter. Your time becomes yours again. Your energy becomes more potent. And people start to feel that you are no longer emotionally available to dysfunction. That you'll listen if it's honest, that you'll engage if it's constructive. But if it spirals, you're gone. That's not arrogance, that's emotional discipline. That's what it means to be untouchable in a world where everyone wants to pull you into their mess. And the irony, the more you live this way, the less you need to say it. Your tone, your presence, your boundaries, they say it for you. But in the moments where it's needed, you say it once. Calm, clear, steady. And when you do, everything pauses. Because that's what truth does. It stops cycles, and that's what you've always had the power to do. You just didn't realize how simple it was, so now you do. The next time you feel yourself getting pulled into emotional theater masked as dialogue, pause, breathe, and say it. This conversation isn't going anywhere useful. Then get up and go build something that is. If you're tired of being talked over, tested, drained, and disrespected, and you're ready to take back your voice, your power, your peace, now is the moment. The world isn't going to hand you clarity. You either claim it or stay stuck in loops that steal years of your life. If you're done wasting time, then the Stoic relationship blueprint is your next move. It's packed with timeless Stoic principles that show you exactly how to lead with strength, speak with purpose, and never lose yourself again. And now, it's finally available in audiobook format, so you can listen while walking, training, building yourself into the man you were meant to be. This isn't just another book. This is a weapon, a mirror, a lifeline, and once you own it, it's yours forever. No games. Just truths rooted in Stoic principles. Comment, I choose clarity if you're ready to grab the ebook now. The link's in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and help this message reach the next man before it's too late.